Among the most powerful of any player abilities in World of Warcraft is the stun. And today we'll be taking a look at the top 10 stuns that have been removed from players and their pets. And this list was made with the two criteria of the duration of the stun and the number of enemies it could stun. First up at number 10, we have the Shaman ability Earthquake. Earthquake was added in Cataclysm and is a pretty simple AoE damage ability. However, Earthquake comes with the added benefit that it has a 5% chance to knock down and stun enemies caught in it for 1 second. While a 5% chance is indeed a small percent, it's still better than 0%. With the stun aspect of this ability, it meant that in theory, Earthquake could stun every enemy in its radius. So although it would be very rare, it did have the potential to be an AoE stun. Earthquake remained untouched throughout all of Mist of Pandaria. However, in World of Draenor, it was changed so that only one stun could occur on the enemies in the ring. It sounds like fun was detected and Blizzard acted accordingly. As such, while this ability and stun still exist in the game, Earthquake was technically nerfed rather than completely removed. However, the potential for multiple stuns was removed, so we're counted it as the first AoE stun removal on this list. Before we move on to number 9, there are two fun facts about Earthquake. First, Earthquake is one of the few abilities in the entire game to have multiple crowd control effects, as it both knocks down and then can stun an enemy. Second, some players might recognize Earthquake as being the ultimate spell available to Thrall in the Farseer hero unit in Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne. Since this stun in WoW is only 1 second long, it lands at number 10 on this list. And at number 9, we have the Paladin ability Seal of Justice. This ability has been in the game from Vanilla all the way until Legion. However, it has been changed several times and it only stunned during Vanilla, the Burning Crusade, and Wrath. The description of the ability reads, fills the Paladin with the Spirit of Justice for 30 seconds, giving each melee attack a chance to stun for 2 seconds. Seal of Justice was completely reworked in Cataclysm, so it could no longer stun a target but slow them instead. Seal of Justice was completely removed from the game in Legion, and this was after it had only become a Retribution Paladin ability in Mist of Pandaria. The reason Seal of Justice comes at number 9 is for 3 reasons. First, its proc chance is pretty low, and second, the proc itself only lasted 2 seconds. Although a cooldown of 30 seconds is nice, the chances of one stun, let alone several, is very low for a duration of 2 seconds. Third, Paladins can only have one seal at a time, and there are probably other seals that are more suited to whatever the encounter may be. However, while we don't know for sure exactly why this seal was removed, Blizzard had been long since removing random stun abilities from players' kits over the years. So a seal whose whole MO was random stuns was bound to get hit eventually too, with it finally being removed in Legion. Seal of Justice is the last proc stun on this list, and the rest of this video will be abilities that always have a 100% chance to stun. Next up at number 8 is a tie between two Hunter pet abilities, Sonic Blast and Sting. Both these stuns have lasted for 2 seconds and were both added in the Wrath of Lich King expansion and removed in Warlords of Draenor. The first of these two abilities, Sonic Blast, is only usable by pets that are in the Bat family. Presumably inspired by echolocation, Sonic Blast has a pretty long range of 20 yards and has a 1-minute cooldown. When Sonic Blast was removed in WoD, it was replaced by a 5% buff to multi-strike chance, which really can't even be compared to the usefulness of the stun that was lost. The other Hunter ability stun that was removed in WoD was Sting, which has an ability only pets from the Wasp family could use. Although Sting was added in Wrath, it wasn't until Cataclysm the Wasp could actually stun an enemy. With this rework of the Sting ability, Wasps are also made slightly more advantageous with their stun, since the cooldown of Sting was only 45 seconds, compared to the 1-minute cooldown of Sonic Blast. While pets can be utilized strategically in different situations and don't require the player to directly control them all the time, the stun these pets have are only 2 seconds long, and the stuns in the rest of this video are going to continue to increase in duration, meaning the two Hunter pet abilities, Sonic Blast and Sting, are number 8 on this list. And at number 7, we have the first Warrior abilities removed from the game. The Warrior stun Intercept is a baseline ability that's been in the game since Vanilla. This ability is pretty much another charge for the Warrior, although one that can be used in combat, and the stun it produced could last 3 seconds. While the charge ability itself also had a stun all the way up into Warlords of Draenor, this stun was very short, with its max length being 1.5 seconds in Wrath. The original Intercept had an 8 to 25 yard range and a 30-second cooldown. Intercept's first nerf came in Cataclysm, when its stun duration was cut in half to 1.5 seconds. Blizzard tried to make this not as bad with the Glyph of Intercept, which made the stun 2.5 seconds, but it seems Blizzard abandoned the Intercept ability in Mist of Pandaria when it was removed from the game. Mainly because by this point they were allowed to use charge in combat, so there was really no point in having 2 charges that could be used in combat. Intercept did make a return to the game in Legion and BFA, but its stun ability did not return unfortunately. Although this defensive ability did come with a short root. This new Intercept ability was then also removed from the game in Shadowlands, but also when they added back the ability Intervene. Intervene does not root or stun targets at all in the modern game and only allows you to charge to an ally to intercept an attack. A 3-second stun on a 30-second cooldown was probably considered just too overpowered by Blizzard, and so they nerfed it when the rework for many classes came in Cataclysm. Still, 3 seconds is 1 second longer than the 2-second stuns that the Hunters had with some of their pet abilities, so it rushes in at number 7 on this list. And at number 6, we have 2 abilities, this time with both of these abilities belonging to a summoned demonic minion exclusive to the Warlock class. The first of these abilities comes from the Warlock Doomguard minion, which has the ability called War Stomp. This ability existed from vanilla all the way to Cataclysm. It should be noted this ability is of course different from the Tauren racial ability, also called War Stomp, which is another AoE stun. The reason the Doomguard War Stomp ability was removed was because the Doomguard could no longer be summoned with the spell Ritual of Doom in Cataclysm. Additionally, the Doomguard in Cataclysm only had one ability called Doombolt, down from the 3 it previously had. War Stomp cost 250 mana and had a 20-second cooldown. This stun had a radius of 8 yards, which could stun 5 enemies at a time and lasted for 2 seconds. The player can also only use this ability once they hit level 60. While the Ritual of Doom ability was re-added to the game in the Shadowlands expansion, the Doomguard that is summoned does not have the War Stomp ability as it did in the earlier years of WoW. If you want a full history of the Doomguard minion, we actually already have that as a video on this channel, which will be linked in the video description below. The next stun that was removed from the game in the Cataclysm expansion came from another Warlock minion, the Felguard. This ability was called Intercept, but it shouldn't be confused with the warrior ability of the same name. This Intercept ability was added in the Burning Crusade and only stunned one target, unlike the Doomguard's AoE Stomp stun. This stun had a range of 25 yards, since the Felguard would just first charge towards its enemy before stunning it. The stun lasted for 3 seconds and had a 30-second cooldown. As mentioned, the ability was removed in Cataclysm when the Intercept spell was reworked. This new ability was called Pursuit, and while the charge component remained, Pursuit only does damage and gives the Felguard a haste buff. The Pursuit ability has remained unchanged in its mechanics ever since then. Like the Doomguard, there is a video on the history of the Felguard minion, which will also be linked in the description below. The first expansion to remove stuns from the game was Cataclysm. So why remove these 2 stuns from Warlocks? There are probably 3 main reasons why. First, with a 20-second and 30-second cooldown, both of these stuns could be used way too often and were considered too overpowered by Blizzard standards. Second, both of these abilities had the same name as other abilities in the game, and Blizzard just wanted to rename them to avoid confusion. Third, because Blizzard decided to change the way Warlocks worked in Cataclysm, these 2 Warlock minions abilities come in at number 6 on this list because the Felguard stun is 1 second longer than the Hunter's Pet stun in the number 8 spot, and because the Doomguard stun is an AoE stun compared to the Intercept, which only stuns 1 target. And at number 5, we have another tie, this time between the Mage's Deep Freeze ability and the Paladin's Exorcism ability. Added in Wrath, the Deep Freeze ability both freezes and stuns enemies. For most of its history, the stun lasted for 4 seconds, though this was up to 5 seconds in Mist of Pandaria, before then being brought back down to 4 seconds again in World of Draenor. The benefit of Deep Freeze over another freeze spell like Frost Nova is that Frost Nova is a root that will break upon the target taking any damage. Deep Freeze has a 35-yard range and a 30-second cooldown, with its only downside being that in order to work, the target must already have a frozen debuff. However, Frost Mages can activate it with their Fingers of Frost procs, which treat their target as if they were frozen, even if they're not, and also because it was instant cast. There was also a Glyph of Deep Freeze also added in Wrath, which brought Deep Freeze off the global cooldown, but at the cost of the stun being 3 seconds instead of 4. Blizzard gave players the cold shoulder when Deep Freeze was removed from the game in the Legion expansion, and mainly because it was just an incredibly strong stun in PvP situations. The other stun ability in the number 5 place is Exorcism. This ability existed in the game from vanilla all the way until Legion. However, it wasn't until Dragonflight when the ability was re-added that it also included a stun. This new stun part of the ability has a duration of 5 seconds. However, Exorcism only does increase damage to undead and demonic targets and could only stun those 2 types of NPCs as well. Unfortunately, Exorcism does not work on players. This new Exorcism stun barely lasted 5 months, as it was removed with the Retribution Paladin rework in patch 10.0.7. It was also probably removed for just being too overpowered, since it also had a cooldown of only 15 seconds. Additionally, the damage Exorcism caused can also be applied to all other enemies within the Paladin's consecration. Both Deep Freeze and Exorcism are put together here because both have a stun of 5 seconds at their max power, and both require a specific target to work. For mages, their target must be frozen, and for paladins, their target must be undead or demonic in nature. A 5-second stun is among the longest in the history of the game, but there is another stun that has Deep Freeze and Exorcism beat. And at number 4, we have another warrior stun ability that was removed in Mist of Pandaria. This ability is called Concussion Blow, and it was a talent that had been in the game since vanilla. With the updated talent trees introduced in Mist of Pandaria, Concussion Blow was axed. While the ability's attack damage has changed over time, this ability had a 5-second stun from vanilla all the way through Cataclysm. In both vanilla and the Burning Crusade, the cooldown of this ability was 45 seconds, but in Wrath it was brought down to 30 seconds. Although it was removed in Mist of Pandaria, Concussion Blow seems to have been replaced by the new ability added in MoB called Stormbolt. Stormbolt also had a 4-second stun, but does less damage than Concussion Blow did. Concussion Blow is ranked higher than the other 5-second stuns of Deep Freeze and Exorcism since it can stun any target, not just specific ones. Concussion Blow marks the final single target stun ability on this list, and from here on out, the rest will be AoE stunts. At number 3, we have the first monk stun to be removed from the game. The monk ability Fist of Fury is one of the most iconic abilities of the class. Fist of Fury reached its zenith in its stun ability Mist of Pandaria when any target caught within 5 yards of the ability would be stunned for 4 seconds. With a cooldown of only 24 seconds, as well as being a significant DPS ability, Fist of Fury was a powerhouse spell. In Mist of Pandaria, it was even buffed. Yes, buffed so that monks could cast it while silenced, and so that silences did not cancel it. It wasn't until World of Draenor when the first major nerf to Fist of Fury happened. Similar to the Shaman Earthquake ability all the way from number 10 spot, was first nerfed spectacularly to only be able to stun one target. The stun component was then finally removed from the ability in Legion, with the only thing Monk's players receiving is a small update to its damage and ranged 8 yards, up from the previous 5. Fist of Fury's stun only had one weakness in the fact that it could only stun targets in front of the monk. While Fist of Fury does still exist in the game to this day, it's a simple DPS ability, even a hard-hitting one, but it is certainly nowhere near as good without its 4-second stun. And at number 2 spot, we have another monk ability, Clash. Added in Mist of Pandaria and removed in Legion, this spell required the Brewmaster spec and was seriously overpowered. Its flavor text says, you and the target charge each other, meeting halfway, then stunning all targets within 6 yards for 4 seconds. This was a massive AoE stun, of which there are only a handful in the game, with similar abilities being the Shaman's Capacitator Totem and the Warlock's Shadow Fury. Clash also had a cooldown of only 30 seconds, so it could be used quite frequently. Blizzard probably considered this ability simply too good, and so removed it entirely at the beginning of World of Draenor. While Clash was re-added to the game in Shadowlands, it only roots enemies now instead of stunning them. This ability was not only overpowered because of its stun, however, since it also served as half of a charge, meaning monks could rush forward and then stun massive trash packs, as long as the monk's target and the monk met near the trash pack. The 6-yard stun is also a radius from the player, meaning the entirety of the stun on the ground was 12 yards in length. As you probably have guessed, monks were pretty overpowered in Mist of Pandaria, and the number 1 spot will confirm this. And finally at number 1, we have the Charging Ox Wave ability. This monk talent was added in Mist of Pandaria, and its description reads, a mighty ox effigy rushes forward 30 yards in front of you, stunning all enemies within its path for 3 seconds. This stun was available at level 60 and had a cooldown of 30 seconds, although when first implemented, it did have a cooldown of 60 seconds. Charging Ox Wave was sadly removed from the game in Legion, probably deemed too overpowered since monks already had another major stun with their leg sweep ability, which was also another AoE stun for 3 seconds. While the Charging Ox Wave could stun targets further away from the player, it also only stunned players in front of the player. The leg sweep ability stuns targets all around the player, so Blizzard probably decided the leg sweep ability was better to be left in the game than Charging Ox Wave stun, and also just didn't want them to double up on a whole bunch of stuns. Charging Ox Wave lands number 1 on this list because although it was directionally limited, it was a massive AoE stun that could quite literally stun an entire army in front of the monk. Since it covered such a big area and applied to all targets, Charging Ox Wave is probably the biggest stun removal in the history of the game. And that wraps up the top 10 section of this video, and now we'll go over some brief remarks before the end of the video. First, we can see a pattern emerging as it seems Blizzard over the years has tried to remove most of the stuns with cooldowns of less than 1 minute. Indeed, all the massive AoE stuns we could find in the modern game have a cooldown of 1 minute or more. When making this video, we chose to ignore abilities that were merged or moved, like the Druid's Bash becoming Mighty Bash and Mop, and the Pounce ability getting incorporated into the Rake ability in World of Draenor. Thanks for watching, and always remember, if you try to stun a warrior while they have the spell reflection up, they can always say, no, you're stunning.